Hello students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Professor I.K. Ravichandra Rao. I was earlier working at the Documentation Research and Training Center of the Indian Statistical Institute. Today we are going to discuss about a module on Librametry to Webometrics, Historical Development. This is a part of the Scientometrics course. It has several objectives. First objective is to discuss the concept, meaning, definition, and the historical development of the several terms we have used in the past. For example, this particular topic was known as statistical bibliography. Then Dr. Ranganathan used the term Librametrics. Then Pritchard used the term Bibliometrics. Then Scientometrics. Then Informetrics, Webometrics, and today it is Ultrametrics. To explain the Bibliometrics or Scientometrics, its scope and its applications in relation to library and information science. That is the second objective. The third objective is to explain the various models of bibliometrics or informametrics which can be used in several contexts in the day-to-day administration of libraries or information science, and also to show the systematic development of the quantitative analysis related to library and information science and its application, measuring scientific productivity for any given audience. Other objective is to develop an assessment tool for LIS students on bibliometrics and scientometrics assessment. Finally, it provides an existing information available in India and in the world. By learning this course, it has some outcome. After successful completion of this module, you will understand the scope and the definition of different terminologies used in the scientometrics, and also where all it can be applied, how it can be applied, how to interpret the library data. Well, students, Professor Mahalanobis, founder of the Indian Statistical Institute, in the early 1950s argued that the statistics is a key technology since it is required for all socio-economic development activities, and also since it requires for using and in developing as well as in forecasting studies. In recent years, statistics has been applied to a number of areas such as perspective planning, industrial and agricultural development, etc. We also use statistics and apply statistics in our field, library and information science, and that's what we are going to now discuss in this particular paper. During the early 20th century, the application of quantitative methods to library science was known as statistical bibliography. The statistical bibliography does not mean that it is a bibliography of statistics. It refers to quantitative analysis of a bibliography. Analysis may be by country-wise, by time, or by language, etc. Later, in 1948, Dr. Ranganathan introduced the concept of Librametry on the lines of biometry, econometry, and psychometry at the ASLIP conference in Leamington Spa in 1948. In 1969, Alan Pritchard used the term Bibliometrics to describe all studies to quantify the process of a written communication. In the same year, Fairthun also defined bibliometrics as the quantitative treatment of the properties of recorded discourse and behavior pertaining to it. Well, after some time, maybe in late 70s, this term Scientometrics became very popular, and it is restricted to measurement of the science communication, whereas bibliometrics deals with the general information processes. In another development, Otto Nacke of West Germany proposed a term called Informetrics. This was in 1979. Dr. Ranganathan, in his capacity as the librarian of the Madras University Library, practiced various Librametric techniques way back in 1925. The very purpose of this is to solve day-to-day library problems and to streamline the day-to-day library activities, services for their users, and also for the betterment of the library professional as a whole. The scope of a Librametry is not well defined then. It was only in 1969, in a seminar held at DRTC, Ranganathan as well as Professor Neelamegan explained the scope of the Librametrics. It is limited to the quantitative studies of the characteristics of books, readers, and staff. The absence of any one of the three elements, that is the books, readers, and the staff, will make the library ceases to exist. Each has its own potentiality, and it is only a sum of the three that makes a library. Thus, we can measure all the characteristics of a book, readers, and a staff, and the very method of identifying the various measures and analysis or interpreting these measures are part of the scope of the Librametrics. Ranganathan, in fact, in his paper presented at the DRTC 7th Annual Seminar in 1969, suggested a few examples of a statistics to library science based on his experience and the experiments carried out at the Documentation Research and Training Center. In the same year, Neelamegan outlined the applications for Librametrics. They are determination of the strength of library staff, disposition of the library staff for circulation work during the different library hours, disposition of library staff for reference services during different library hours, organization of a library systems, establishing the distinction between the service library and the dormitory library, design of a library building, fittings and furniture, book selection, absolute syntax and a facet syntax in relation to the classification, length of a class number, for example, variation in style in writing catalog entries, and other things. Neelamegan has really outlined more or less the application as well as scope of the Librametrics in 1969. In 1969 itself, as I said earlier, Pritchard has come out with the term Bibliometrics. He was the first one to coin this particular term. In this term, there are two words, biblio and metrics. Biblio obviously referred to books and the metrics referred to measures. So basically, bibliometrics means analysis, quantitative analysis of certain characteristics of library as such, maybe characteristics of reader, characteristics of books, or characteristics of services, etc. To come to the precise definition of a bibliometrics, Pritchard defined it as the application of mathematics and statistical methods to books and other media of communication. Fairthrone defined it as the quantitative treatment of properties of recorded discourse and the behavior of written communication. In 1977, Hawkins also defined bibliometrics as the application of quantitative analysis with a bibliographic reference of the body of a literature. Bibliometric studies include studies of the growth of a literature, how much a literature is contributed by various individuals, groups, or organizations or countries, how much exists in various languages, how the literature on some subject is scattered, that is, over documentary types, language, journals, etc. And how quickly the literature on some subject becomes out of date. That is called studies of obsolescence. Bibliometric tools can be applied to studies related to scattering of articles. This is one aspect of it. Geographical distribution, language-wise distribution, institution-wise distribution of articles, age distribution of documents, distribution of citations. Also, a study of a distribution of citations is also part of bibliometrics. Use of information storage and retrieval, in the sense the analysis of use of the information storage and retrieval. It can be applied even in the area of library use studies. It can even apply to study the trends in research, to identify the authorship trends in documents, and to evaluate the library collection. This is a very important aspect of a bibliometrics. Sometime in late 70s, as I said earlier in the beginning, Scientometrics, the term Scientometrics became very popular. It's a quantitative study of a science output or outcome in any form, not just records or bibliographies. It comprises all the metrics studies related to science indicators, citation analysis, research evaluation, etc. Scientometrics was used to denote measurement of information processes, measurement of Informetrics processes, particularly in Eastern Europe in 1960s. The Informetrics was then widely used to mean documentation or information handling activities. In 1969, Nalimo and Molchanko defined it as the application of those quantitative methods which are dealing with the analysis of science viewed as an information process. According to Winkler, Scientometric represents a subdiscipline of a science of science which deals with all quantitative or quasi-quantitative aspects of science and scientific research. Its main competence is the investigation of the quantitative features of information processes. Scientometrics has several applications. It is concerned with the quantitative features and characteristics of a science and scientific research. Emphasis is placed on the investigations in which the development and mechanisms of science are studied by statistical mathematical methods. Scientometrics is now considered as a part of sociology of science and is applied to science policy making. Obviously, the scientometric involves studies in sociology of science, history of science, growth of literature, behavior of scientists, science indicators, etc. Information in its most restricted technical sense is a sequence of symbols that can be interpreted as a message. Information can be recorded as a sign or transmitted as signals. Information is any kind of event that affects the states of a dynamic system. Information in its most restricted technical sense is a sequence of symbols that can be interpreted as a message. Information is any kind of event that affects the state of a dynamic state. Computationally, information is the message being conveyed. People have started trying to measure information as such, as well as use of information. Now, this particular aspect of measuring information is generally known as Informetrics. Its scope, it's a scientific field wherein the developments of measurement of the impact of information are assessed continuously. Now, Bibliometrics is treated as a synonymous to Informetrics, having a scope to analyze quantitative characteristics of information. But we must see here the difference between Bibliometrics and the Scientometrics, and then Scientometrics and the Informetrics. Bibliometrics is restricted to books. Scientometrics is restricted to science policy, author analysis, citation analysis, etc. Information is little bit more than these two. Strictly speaking, it's an analysis, quantitative analysis of information as such, as well as use of information. Informetric studies may be used to develop measures to study and analyze several properties of information in general and documents in particular. The study of a quantitative aspects of information in any form, not just records or bibliographies. Informetrics is the study of a quantitative aspect of information, if I say very briefly. Applications includes the analysis of the production, dissemination, and use of all forms of information, regardless of its form or origin. As such, Informetrics encompasses the fields which studies quantitative aspects of science. It is mostly concerned with the development of models to explain and identify the various characteristics of the literature. It also discusses scientific productivity, collaboration, research, etc. Now, we have seen what is Librametry. Basically, it is restricted to quantitative analysis of a day-to-day administration of libraries. The science of Webometrics, also sometimes known as Cybermetrics, tries to measure the World Wide Web to get knowledge about the number and types of a hyperlink, structure of the World Wide Web, and usage patterns. According to John Bourne and Ingwersen, the definition of Webometrics is the study of the quantitative aspects of the construction and use of information resources, structure, and technologies on the web, drawing on the bibliometric and informetric approaches. The term Webometrics was first coined by Elman and Ingwersen. A second definition of Webometrics has also referred to the study of web-based content with primarily quantitative methods for social science research goals using techniques that are not specific to one field of study, which emphasizes the development of applied methods for use in the wider social sciences. Cybermetrics is one of the recently emerged fields in the line of metric studies. It has gained much popularity since the mid-1990s with the advent of information technology. As it is mainly concerned with a computer science-based approach, it has superseded all other metric studies in this internet era. Cybermetrics is proposed as a generic term for the study of the quantitative aspects of the construction and use of information resources, structures, and technology on the whole. Internet drawing on bibliometric and informetric approaches. The study of quantitative aspects of the construction and use of information resources, structures, and technologies on the whole internet, drawing on bibliometric and informetric approaches. This is one of the scopes. Cybermetrics thus encompasses statistical studies of discussion groups, mailing lists, and other computer-mediated communication on the internet, including the www. Besides covering all computer-mediated communication by using internet applications, this definition of a cybermetrics also covers quantitative measures of the internet backbone technology, topology, and traffic. You look at this figure. Informetrics covers Bibliometrics, Cybermetrics, Scientometrics, Webometrics. Bibliometrics covers Cybermetrics, Webometrics. Scientometrics again covers. There is an interest. This figure tells us what is Informetrics or the scope of the Bibliometrics, how much it is limited, or Scientometrics scope, how much it is limited, etc. As shown in the diagram 1, the field of cybermetrics exceeds the boundaries of bibliometrics because some activities in cyberspace normally are not recorded but communicated synchronously like the chat rooms. Cybermetric studies of such activities still fit in the generic field of informetrics as the study of the quantitative aspects of information in any form and in any social group as stated by Teague Sutcliffe. The inclusion of Webometrics expands the field of bibliometrics as Webometrics inevitably will contribute with the further methodological developments of web-specific approaches. As ideas rooted in bibliometrics, Scientometrics and Informetrics contributed to the emergence of Webometrics. Ideas in Webometrics might contribute to the development of these embracing fields. Well, there are certain institutions in this area which promotes the activities and the research in this particular area. For example, International Society for Scientometrics and Information. It was founded at the International Conference on Bibliometrics and Informetrics, Bibliometrics, Informetrics, held in Berlin in 1993. This is basically a registered society which conducts international conferences once in 2 years, and they also bring out proceedings, and this particular society is now well known among the scientometricians. There's another society called a Colnet. It was set up in 2000 under the leadership of Heldon Trashmer. Once again, Colnet is responsible to, the Colnet again organizes a conference every year, and it brings out a journal also. The National Institute of Science, Communication and Information Resources, NISCAR, is a wing of CSIR and formerly known as a INSDOC, carry out research in the area of bibliometrics, scientometrics, and also informetrics. There's another institute, National Institute of Science and Technology and Development Studies, known as NISTERS. It's again a wing of CSIR. It is most of their activities are centered around scientometrics. As early as 1962, Indian Statistical Institute started a center called Documentation Research and Training Center at Bangalore, and it regularly, as one of its objectives, it carries out research in the area of bibliometrics and scientometrics. In recent times, a number of research works were published from departments of library and information science of many universities in India, particularly in Karnataka University and Mysore University, Madras University, and Calcutta University. There are several research papers have come out. Even in Pune University, several doctoral students have wrote theses in this particular area. There are two journals in this area, Journal of Scientometrics and the Colnet Journal of Scientometrics and Information Management. These two journals totally concentrates on this subject and publishes several high quality of research papers. Whether we call our research area as a Librametry or a Bibliometrics or Scientometrics or Informetrics, most of the topics we deal with are quantitative aspects of a library and information studies, especially use and user studies, growth of collection, age distribution of documents, circulation statistics, etc. Second one, we study journal productivity by coverage, by use, by citation, or cost effectiveness, or its impact factor, or H-index of a journal, or sources of a citation, or immediacy of a citation, age of a source cited, coverage in databases, etc. Third one, the measure of a productivity or author productivity, including studies related to multiple authorship, that is joint authorship or a three-authored paper, etc. Now, the cost effectiveness measures, impact factors, H index of the individuals, reprints required, photocopies made, etc. we study. Now, the topics we deal with the growth and obsolescence of literature, measures of a scientific productivity, that is, it is often referred to as a author productivity, and the co-citation, bibliographic, coupling, etc. Quantitative aspects of library and information studies, including journal productivity, rank distribution of etc. Finally, identifying the relations among the various disciplines, structure of subjects, national mapping of a science, etc. Now, so students, please remember in this under this, in fact, I would prefer to call this area as a Scientometrics. It basically deals with analysis of books, quantitative analysis of certain characteristics of books, journals, then the users, and the library as such. As on today, the very important subtopics of Scientometrics is science indicators. Now, by now you must be knowing what is science indicator. Sometimes it deals with the journals. Sometimes science indicators deals with the users. Sometimes the science indicators deals with the books as such. Some of the science indicators are impact factor, H index, etc. Now, when we say impact factor, you can always compute impact factor of a journal, impact factor of research work carried out in an India or in a country, impact factor of an institution. The basically impact factor tells us what is the impact of the research output. That's basically what it does. For example, impact factor of a journal is nothing but an average number of citations per articles received in the preceding 2 years or 3 years. Basically that. Now, another important science indicators is H index. Now, H index is the figure which tells you how many research papers have received H or some fixed number of a citation. Let's say H index of a journal. Let us look into H index of a journal. Suppose H index of a one journal is 10. That means 10 of its top journals have received at least 10 citations. If a H index of an author is 10, that means 10 of his articles have received at least 10 citations. The main objective in scientometric research today is to identify or develop a suitable indicator to evaluate the science activities or a science output. But then, is that important? I think what is important is we should measure the outcome of our research, not simply the output of our research. Thank you.